Yes.
Okay. Are you handing the mic to me, Vanessa?
Yeah, no, I will. I will in
You're gonna start? Okay.
yes. So once again, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Vanessa Macamo. I'm an international student from Mozambique. I'm doing my PhD in special education here at University of Arizona with Andrea. So we share the space most of the times, and we are together in other different places. Original, our language is Portuguese, so please understand me when I take time to reflect and translate. So today, I'm organizing during this semester. I normally do this educational podcast, but during this semester, I just decided to organize series of educational podcasts related only with inclusion and inclusive education. So each Saturday or after 2 weeks, we normally have guest speakers who come and bring their views about what is inclusive education, how can we benefit persons with disabilities, and how can we make life more easier for persons with disabilities. I have experience as a principal, working as a principal in Mozambique. And one of the things that I realize is that children with disabilities, they don't have access to education. And it's not that because we don't have policies. We have policies in place, but there is a difference between what is written and what is there in practice. So that's why I decided to have this discussion. And also, the communities, they are not aware about what is the situation in terms of policy. They don't know their rights. Okay, and we still have stigma and discrimination in Mozambique. So it's important for us to start discussing these kind of topics. Reason why I decided that for this fall semester, the goal in this program will be to discuss these topics. So today we have Andrea Espinoza. I will give a space, Andrea, to introduce herself and explain a little bit more about what is the topic that she will be talking and discussing with us today, and probably the implication for our global south, including Mozambique, which is my country. Andrea, you can start, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Vanessa. And I really thank you for inviting me into this space. It's very special. I think that multinational collaborations are extremely important. I am very, very invested in advancing systems change for special education, not only within the US, but in the global South. So I know that in other countries, special education looks different. We have different historical and cultural conditions. And we need to be mindful that our differences can unite us. So I want to preface this talk by saying that. And I hope we're feeling well. I have some information, some knowledge to share with you, and I hope it's enjoyable. I'll be like on my best entertainer mode. However, if I'm boring, I'm sorry in advance. So um, I would like
Oh,
to start the slideshow. And yes,
okay.
Vanessa?
Yeah, no, I'm organizing
Okay.
myself with that. Give me one more minute, Andrea, so you can probably start who you are while I'm organizing. It disappear
Oh,
here.
sure. Yeah, no worries. And I'm just gonna do a quick exercise. If everybody could put in the chat how they're doing this morning. Um, one being terrible, five being awesome, the best you can be. Like, yes, I am feeling my best today. I just had my dinner, I just had my breakfast. Um, Go ahead and put a number in the chat and let's see how we're doing. So for me, I am feeling, I would say, no, a four. I would say a four. The reason why I'm feeling a four is because I need my morning coffee. But I'm feeling happy that I'm sharing space with everybody here. All right, a 4 and a 1. Okay. I hope it gets better, Vina. You know, it's okay to be a 1. A 1 is okay. Let's see, any other numbers? I know my mom is here. I wonder how she's doing. Okay, 5. Oh yes, not a morning person. I myself, I'm not a morning person either. More of a night person. That's when my brains are at their peak. All right, mom, 5. I'm glad that you're doing well. All right, my mom is here, everybody. I'm proud of my mom. All right,
Yeah.
Jeanette, 5. Her name is Cece if you want to say hi to Cece.
Oh, can you see this?
Yes.
Can you
And then
see?
if you hit, yes. And if you hit slideshow, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Okay, then 4. That's not bad. We're twinsies. Okay.
Andrea, I think you have to do from your side because I'm having some challenge here. You can see it's just it's not in a slideshow mode, correct?
I could see it, but it's not in a slideshow mode. So I'm going to have to get creative with my notes. Um, Thank you for your patience, everybody. Technology, am I right? It's supposed to
Oh,
make our lives easier, but it really doesn't sometimes.
yeah, I was trying to do it.
Okay. Um,
Okay, let me try again.
you want to try again? Okay.
Yeah. What about now?
I see if did you hit slideshow? You see slideshow up at the top right-hand corner next to that kiwi bird.
Yep.
All the,
Okay.
yeah, that's good. Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate
Well,
you so much. It looks great. That looks wonderful. Okay, everybody, I'm going to get started. This is my talk, Humanizing Special Education, centering students' experiences, talents, and strengths in systems which do not see them. I am part of the uh, Global South's Intersectional Disability Studies Collective. And as a member, I have learned so much about the ways disability moves transnationally. I think that people experience disability in varying ways, and that there is not one single definition to describe what disability is. I think disability is not a single axis issue, but it's something that we experience as marginalized people across the world. Okay, go ahead and hit next, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
yep.
Okay, so first, I want to ground ourselves in 2 philosophies that come from Africa and the Americas. And so, first, I want to talk about Ubuntu. I first heard about Ubuntu from a colleague, and I have to say, I've never heard of Ubuntu, but I think it was so beautiful and so relatable in how we can galvanize each other. So Ubuntu comes from Bantu, from South Africa, and it means I am because we are. What this means is well-being is not an individual process. We cannot ascertain our own individual well-being without communal well-being. So to say the whole thing, Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Nagabuntu, which means it means a person is a person through other persons. This was popularized by Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. Nelson Mandela was a president, an activist and the president of South Africa, as you all know, in Mozambique. And Desmond Tutu also champions civil rights in South Africa as well. So I believe that this is so important in humanizing each other and our youth. Go ahead and hit next, Vanessa. Thank you. Hello, Dacia. Thank you for being here. So with that being said, I want to travel to the Americas. Vanessa, are you able to switch slides?
Yeah, I'm trying. I think my internet, I'm sorry, my internet
Oh
today.
no,
Yeah,
I have the same problem.
yeah, it's just slow. Probably, I think, and I'm sorry, I apologize, everyone. Probably, Andrea, I think the best is for you to monitor from your side because the internet it's not working properly and it's taking time for me from this
Oh
side.
yes. Okay.
Yeah. So
My
probably we
internet
switch and
kind
then
of
you have a
sucks.
better control of the
Oh yeah,
presentation.
absolutely. Let's
Yeah.
see
So
here. You guys get to see my browser.
mhm.
Allow multiple presenters to share. Sure, why not? Okay. The more the merrier, right? Um,
You are welcome, Miss Espinoza.
all right. And then I hit slideshow. All right, y'all could see my screen, right?
Yes, perfectly
Okay,
well.
great. All right, this is my agenda. And I won't go over it, but
Mhm.
you could get a quick glance on what we're going to talk about. We just went over Ubuntu, all right? And now we're going to switch over to Inlakesh. Inlakesh has been so important to me as a learner and a teacher. It's a Mayan principle, which means you are my other me. And it was written in a poem in the 1970s by playwright Luis Valdez. He wrote works such as Zoot Suit. He wrote, he directed, I believe, the movie La Bamba. And, you know, Jeanette and Steve, please hop in and, you know, share some knowledge, some precious knowledge if you can, if you feel like to. So what this means is we are tethered to each other. Your well-being is bound to mine, right? So I'm just going to share the poem because this is something that has been shared to me by my teachers. And by extension, I share this with my youth, with students who I share space with. So it goes something like this. En Lakesh, tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, if I do harm to you, me hago daño a mí mismo. I do harm to myself. Si te amo y respeto, if I love and respect you, me amo y respeto yo. I love and respect myself. Now, this is incredibly humanizing because it teaches us that we are interconnected, that one's suffering is our suffering, that one cannot be truly liberated unless we are all liberated.
Miha, you said that beautifully. This is what grounds our program at the University of Arizona, the Humanizing and Culturally Affirming Teacher Preparation Program. Dr. Curtis Acosta brought it to the institution, and it's been used through Tucson Unified School District for many, many years. I worked at Davis Bilingual, and Dr. Norma Gonzalez and Dr. Gonzalez would teach that to our elementary students when I was a counselor at Davis Bilingual and Tucson Unified School District. So it's been embedded in TUSD and embedded in within our program. So Andrea, thank you for sharing that knowledge and here with us today. I appreciate that, and just I'm so completely proud of you. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. Yes,
And
that
Steve.
means so much.
I definitely echo Jeanette, my wife's words there. Much credit to you, Andrea, and her team for putting this on. But if I could just kind of piggyback on what Andrea was saying, and also my wife, My name's Steve Gabaldon. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I've been a public educator now for 30 years. For the majority of that time, I've been an administrator, but also, I was a teacher for about 10 years with the Tucson Unified School District. Guys, this is just something I think is just foundational. When you talk about educating our kids, I've always worked in Title I schools. And it's just, again, vital. It's foundational. When you talk about teaching our kids in a well-rounded perspective, I think it's just, tú eres mi otro yo, you are my other me. I think it definitely teaches compassion, empathy, and I just think that is so foundational. One of the things I tell my teachers is that we're raising kids to a degree. And when you're teaching compassion, and when you look at our world with social media and there's definitely positive things to social media, but there's a lot of negativity that goes with it. And when you're talking about kids that are anywhere from, 10, 11, all the way up to 18 and into their early 20s, there just seems to be this track of negativity many times, and so when you're talking about tú eres mi otro yo and bringing that into the schools, yeah, we're there to educate and move our kids academically, but when you talk about being well-rounded, it's also being a good person. And I just think that that's what our world needs right now, that compassion piece. You talk about changing the world and implementing compassion. I think those two just go hand in hand. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you too. I appreciate your input. Yes. And I want to also share that I am not the singular expert. We all have something to share. We all are learners and teachers. And I think that the exchange of information is what is foundational. We should not rely on one person to disseminate knowledge. So I appreciate you both. Thank you. Okay, so now I would like to ask our audience. So one word is what's needed. What community value has shaped you as a learner so far in life? Was it respect, solidarity, perseverance, humility, love, integrity? You don't have to choose from this list, but I am curious to see who has impacted you and what value have they shared with you? And let's see if I could, and thank you so much for our interpreting team for allowing access to our community members in Mozambique. And yes, thank you, Tausia. In the context of US, Title I is low income. Yes. So, what community value has shaped you as a learner? Empathy, respect, definitely respect. Respect is a huge one, being seen. Okay, adversity. That's an interesting one. Okay, curiosity, compassion, and generosity, definitely. Curiosity, I feel, is not talked about enough. I think that curiosity really fuels compassion, empathy, understanding, care. Yes, absolutely care. Okay, thank you all for sharing. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So I would like to share a little bit about myself, my own positionality as a scholar. First of all, I would like to say that here in the States, we like to acknowledge original peoples who inhabited our lands. In our case here in Southern Arizona, in Tucson, we are on the land of the Tohono O'odham people. And they have cultivated care and great stewardship of this land. And without saying that they were here and they're still here, my community members in the Tohono O'odham Nation, we resist erasure. So that's part of the decolonizing aspect of land acknowledgements, that we have to acknowledge original peoples who inhabited our lands. I was raised in Southern Arizona in Tucson. I have a tri-national connection. My father has Mexican roots. My mother is from Thailand, and I was raised here in the United States. I'm a perpetual learner. So forever a learner, I will die a learner. But I also was an educator. I'm still an educator. But I was in spaces with youth for about 10 years as a special and general education teacher in the west side of Tucson and the south side of Tucson. And I have shared many like many moments with students, many beautiful moments, but many tragic moments. And that impacted me forever as a person. And lastly, I would like to say that youth are knowledge makers. They are experts in their own experiences. And their family and community members, our neighbors, are educators and researchers as well. I think that just because a person has published or a person is in a lecture hall, that does not make them the sole expert. I believe that we are all experts, we are all researchers, we are all educators, and we're learners all at once. So to go over these pictures, I would like to share, this is my grandmother. Her name is Jurai Wan. She lives in Thailand, and she's 100 years old and so strong. I admire her so much. This elderly man is my abuelo, my tata. He lives in Nogales on this side of the line, Nogales, Arizona in the US. And he too has been a great teacher to me. I have learned so much from him. His name is Andres, and I was named after my father, who was named after him. So I take pride in sharing that legacy. To the bottom, that is our border wall. This was taken in Nogales. The wall has been a huge part of my experience as an educator, as a scholar, as a human being. It reminds me that division occurs on purpose, and connection is what's needed to really impact change. If you look above, right there next to my tata, this was made by a student when I was a teacher. I taught 7th grade resource at a school named Mansfield here in Tucson, in Arizona. And I love this picture so much. Every time I look at it, it brings me such joy because I'm on a pizza slice. I mean, who can say somebody has drawn them on a pizza slice? And this student has drawn me in such reverence. The student is right there in the middle with the pigtails. And I remember the student just went through such trouble in her schooling, and yet she still managed to find joy in sharing just space and dreams with her peers and with me. So that was very touching for her to draw a portrait of me. And you know, whenever I see that, that's just a instant happiness boost. All right, so to continue, and I know I don't have my notes, so I'll do my best. And any of you, please jump in if you'd like to add something. But I would like to take a moment to problematize special education systems here in the US. I know that in Mozambique, you may have similar cultural and historical conditions as the US. However, I would like to talk about what has made education a system of harm in the US. So firstly, we need to recognize that colonial and carceral historical conditions really did take part in the development of special education and general education in the US. If you look at the picture to the left, this was a picture taken of Alaskan girls, and they're at a boarding school. So boarding schools are a major part of our historical condition as people residing here in these lands. And this was a huge detriment, a huge harm that was done in the mid 1800s up until, you know, not even that far back. I believe I even had a friend who went to a boarding school who was Dene, which is a tribe in northern Arizona. So that set the precedence of our colonial and carceral logics here in the US for our schooling. If you look at the picture to the right of that, this was a picture taken at Willowbrook. And these youth, as you can see, they're very young. They had disabilities. And in the US, if youth had disabilities, they were institutionalized automatically. Unfortunately, not until 1975 were they given any sort of access to any sort of education, any sort of schooling. They were just put in institutions and were essentially really poorly cared for, abused in a lot of cases. So if you haven't, and if you're interested, please watch the Willowbrook documentary that was hosted by Geraldo Rivera, because that was a huge eye opener to how students, or youth, I should say, with disabilities were treated. To the right of that picture, you'll see a little girl holding an American flag. Now, there is an author friend who I love to read their work. Their name is Lydia Otero, and they detail their experiences within TUSD, which is our school district here in Tucson. And in their experience, they talk about Americanization programs. So what these programs were intended for were for youth to come into schools, and they were essentially whitewashed. They were taught patriotism. They were forbidden to speak their home languages. And they were taught that America was the master culture, like that you were American, and you need to forget who you are, where your family lines come from. And so a lot of harm was done because of that. A lot of youth were punished for speaking Spanish, especially here in Tucson. And unfortunately, these constructs, these legacies still continue today. And you could see them within special education systems that are implemented today. And to the far right, we mustn't forget how schools were segregated and how students of color were placed in separate schools, which were often in deplorable conditions. And this occurred until the mid 1960s. So all these legacies, all these historical conditions definitely play a part in how special education and more broadly general education are implemented. You could see how various systems are cyclical ways in implementing or impacting harm upon students, from the colonial legacy to carceral legacies. And this was all assimilation models that were brought on by settler colonialism, which demanded that we use our bodies for productivity and systems of, within control, that we must have our youth comply and be controlled. I hope I did well without notes. Anybody have anything to add? Okay. So to continue on, we need to see how those logics, those constructs manifest in special education systems. Now, if you walk into any classroom, you will see that there are community agreements. I think that educators are making headway into changing roles into community agreements. However, we must insist students to be quiet, to look at us, to be, to just help out, be nice. And schooling, unfortunately, is circled around productivity, right? So we ask students to comply. We ask students to follow the rules, and there's not much room for any imagination or creativity. If you look at the picture next to the classroom rules, you'll see a group of students taking a test. Here in the US, tests are mandated through every state, and that is a legacy of the No Child Left Behind Act. And I believe that act was implemented. Now, I'm not good with dates, so if any of you remember the specific date, I think it was early 2000s, right? So what this is students must be, they must be tested in order for districts and schools to receive funding. And unfortunately, if you have a disability, you must be tested too. So these are very rigid structures that impact harm on students because their worth is seen through a test score. Not so much their learning or their moral compass or how they experience the world, but answering multiple choice questions. To the right of that, you'll see a behavior sheet. Now, within special education systems, oftentimes students of color, multiply marginalized students, which means students with disabilities who are Black, Brown, Indigenous, they are often targeted for misbehaving in class. And this is a result of a disconnection between what students should behave like versus how students or youth interact with their world. So research shows that there are incredible disparities between students of color versus students who are considered, not of color. And if you compound that with disability, that presents a very inequitable paradigm. So behavior sheets and behavior plans often target and criminalize students with disabilities who are also of color. If you look down below, you'll see that there are a pair of glasses. Oftentimes, educators are taught to see students as a one-size-fits-all type of participant. So meaning, here's the system, you must conform to this system in order to succeed. Instead of valuing and seeing students' individual strengths and talents, there's a tendency to see students as just one, like there's this color blindness. And so without recognizing students' heritages, their cultures, their home languages, their funds of knowledge, we as educators are harming students because we expect them to have a one-size-fits-all type of attitude towards school, meaning if you work hard, you'll succeed. And if you have a disability, which we might not see, then you must work extra harder. And so these are varying systems of exclusion. Any questions so far? So if we look back at the cultural and historical conditions, we can see how those logics impact students with disabilities now. Okay, so your turn. Type one word in the chat. What local historical condition has caused exclusionary experiences at schools in your location? I gave some examples and I would like to hear your thoughts. So I'm gonna look at the chat. All right, so in your experience, what local historical condition has caused exclusionary experiences for kids, for anybody who shares a schooling space? Colonialism, poverty, disciplinary practices, stigma. Yes, poverty. Yes, poverty is a big one. I think that oftentimes Students show up hungry. They definitely are impacted by, you know, their economic well-being, segregation, is language barriers. Oftentimes in schools, there's not even an interpreter available. Sometimes multilingual parents show up and, you know, or even Spanish speaking parents here in Tucson, and there's nobody to communicate with them because there's not one interpreter at the school. So that is definitely an access issue. Okay, excellent question, Dina. How do you as a teacher find out if a student has a disability, and how do you respond to that? That's an excellent question. I'm gonna go ahead and dog ear that, and we'll get to that at the end because that's a huge question. But thank you so much for asking. Xenophobia, absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you.
Andrea,
Yes.
sorry,
Yes.
I just want to comment related with the language. For example, in Mozambique, although we have our national language is Portuguese, as you know, but we have many dialects, and like people talk different language in different regions, like in the north, south, in the center, and still it's not everyone. Like if you go a little bit out of the rural, the city, the urban areas, if you go a little bit out for rural areas, people, they don't speak Portuguese. And just but that, this can be a barrier to access education. So this is really also a big issue for us in terms of access to education in Mozambique.
That is fascinating because I imagine in Mozambique, there must be dozens, right? You said of dialects, and I mean,
Yeah.
how Portuguese would be the main language, right? Okay. So are there folks who may not speak Portuguese very well?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
for example, I'm from the South. I cannot sometimes understand someone from the North because what this person can just speak their local language and they don't know Portuguese, you know. And the majority of the schools, they are in, I would say, in the cities, in urban areas. It doesn't mean that we don't have schools in the districts, but they are not enough for the majority of the population. So you can still find people who doesn't know how to speak in Portuguese. So
Mm,
there automatically, we can be both Mozambicans, but still having problems in communicating within each other.
yes, that is fascinating. And I think that um, if you think about the history of colonialism and
Yeah.
how that made Portuguese the sole, like the main vein of communication, it's definitely something to be interrogated.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I have a comment from the chat. This is from my pops. So he says in Nogales, Arizona, the public schools were once segregated. There was once a K-8 school named Grand Avenue School. It was designed only for African American students in the community. Yes, and yes, that is also the case here for Tucson. There was a school, I believe it was named Dunbar. And that was a school for like everybody. It wasn't only Black students, but just varying students. It just depended how you looked, your phenotype. Okay. Hopefully my internet's not backing up. So if you know me, I love a good book recommendation. And I'm not going to get into theory because I believe that this is a space that is informal, it's community based. But I do have some book recommendations if you would like to inform your interrogation of problematizing your location's own historical and cultural conditions, right? So the first one was recommended, it's called Disparate. And this was recommended by my advisor and mentor and friend, Dacia. And this informed me of how critical race theory could be combined with disability studies to really look at the intersection between race and disability. So that's an excellent read. And it forever changed my perspective on how I approach talking about special education. The second one is named, it's called Lessons in Liberation. And this is more of a practical guide for educators on how to promote liberatory, emancipatory, and abolitionist practices in their everyday experiences with youth. I highly recommend this book. It informed me so much of how I could implement abolitionist practices in my ways of moving with youth, and even in my personal life with my friendships, with my family relationships, with my neighbors, with just everybody within my community. And the third book was recommended to me by a faculty member here at the University of Arizona named Dr. Sinajini. And it's called Research as Ceremony, Indigenous Research Methods. I think by interrogating our perspective and our experiences of colonialism and carceral constructs, we need to decolonize our ways of moving and thinking with each other, with our youth, with just how we research. And although this is a academic centered book, it really informed me as an educator on how I could share space and have reciprocity with youth, how they could teach me, and how our sharing space is really sacred. So all three of these are just chef's kiss if you would like to look them up. I would also like to share the 10 principles for disability justice. I think that these tenets are very important in how we interrogate harmful systems within special education. And just overall, disability is not just one thing. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be spatial, it could be linguistic, it could be, and like anything you could think of. Even my example of the parents showing up at school and they're not able to receive help because they cannot find somebody that speaks their home language, that in itself is a barrier to access. So I'll just go over all of them briefly. So intersectionality, we must recognize that we have different struggles, and race, gender, sexuality, all these culture, they intersect with disability, and that nobody is truly the same. Not one experience is the same. The second part is one that I feel is one of the most important: leadership of the most impacted. In this case, it's youth with disabilities. They need to have leadership, agency, a voice to really share and impact the policies that control them. So we need to see more leadership from our youth, and we need to elevate that leadership. Anti-capitalist politics. One thing I will say is that we all deserve rest. The way capitalism operates is a very, very insidious and harmful way of using our minds, our body, our labor for productivity. We're made to feel guilty if we're not productive. So rest is truly important. And Audre Lorde has taught me that self-care is community care. So if you're not taking care of yourself and giving yourself that rest, then your community suffers. Cross-movement solidarity, we need to be able to reach out to each other, regardless of our various disabilities, our various abilities, and galvanize each other in moving. We need to recognize that we are whole people. That's number 5. That means we have experiences, we have emotions, we have our own hearts, we have our own brains, we have our own ways of being. 6 is sustainability. Again, being able to lean on each other, learn that interdependence. cross-disability solidarity. Again, that is definitely important. I think that if we look at our students in self-contained classrooms, because here in the US, there are different levels of restriction. It's called least restrictive environment. So we have students in classrooms all day with the same teacher based on their disability. And we have students who are with their non-disabled peers in the regular or general education classroom. And so I think this is a big one because there's such a huge stigma within the culture of youth nowadays that if you're in that classroom, then you're not worthy of sitting at our table. And the way students are taught to dehumanize each other, it's by example. So we definitely need to champion this understanding of how we move differently, how we think differently. Interdependence, we need to galvanize each other. We are definitely going through our own struggles, but again, our struggle is everybody's struggle. Collective access, together we can make anything possible. It's that collective mindset, right? And collective liberation, I think through community, we are able to achieve so much. We are able to impact anything. Okay, any questions about the 10 principles of disability justice? This is from Sins Invalid. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Sins Invalid, yes. Please check them out because they have a lot of resources. All right, so how do we humanize youth with disabilities? We're gonna take everything that we talked about, from our interrogation of colonial and carceral constructs to, the 10 principles of disability justice. First of all, we must recognize that students are whole people. They have talents, they have strengths, and we must center these strengths in their schooling. I think that there's a tendency to shut students out, to make them sit down, and you must do the work, but we are not recognizing how this process does not support their wholeness. If you look to the picture next to "You Are a Whole Person," you'll see a man with a beard. This is Paulo Freire. He wrote a book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And this is a book that forever changed my life. In seeing students as whole human beings, we can't really dismiss their struggles. We can't blame them for falling short of our broken systems. And I just love this picture because yes, your existence it cannot be silenced. Next to that, you'll see a young man with a amplifier. Students need to be placed in positions of power. They should not be silenced. They should not be shut out. They should not be excluded from the very processes which determine the systems that involve them. So I'm not sure if we heard about this, but there's this saying called "nothing about us without us." And this is how we humanize them, is that, we say, you know what, you deserve a seat at the table. If not, let's flip over the table, break the table. I love that analogy. And let's build a new table together. And if you look at the picture of the youth holding a sign that says, "I am more than just a test score." Yes, I think that we often measure test scores, grades, assessments, numbers, data. We determine placement of a student here in the US based on these numbers, instead of recognizing their individual talents, instead of recognizing their strengths and their being. We should have other units of measurement, not just assessment scores, not just numbers on a paper that determine their worth. And the last picture is from a picture book called "We Move Together." And this was introduced to me by my mentor, Dausia. It's such a beautiful book, and it's about a group of kids with a mix of disabilities just finding joy in each other, finding community in each other, and creating their own space. I think students need to have these spaces in which they are able to fully explore their humanity, and they're able to be free and liberated, to experience radical joy and explore their radical imagination. So these are some ways that we are able to humanize our youth. So these are steps for the village. Who is the village? The village includes us. It includes our youth. It includes our neighbors, our community members. You know, it includes maybe a person that comes by and sells food to you. It includes our librarians. It includes our parents, our families, everybody that shares space with us. That's the village, right? And so in my own research, what I seek to do is create villages, create a village to really protect and support our youth. So these are actionable steps for us. We must center student narratives. We must consider them as knowledge makers and experts in their experiences. And this should have a role in how we develop policy. We need to explore new ways of mobilizing knowledge. What Vanessa is doing, this is a type of knowledge mobilization. I mean, look how beautiful this is. We have people from different parts of the earth, from Mozambique to the US, and we're exchanging information, we're mobilizing our knowledge. We are, taking part of this dialectic. We need to deinstitutionalize spaces. Now, I know at the U of A, there's devastation because of our dismantling or our combining of cultural centers. At our university, there are different cultural centers, which really are a home away from home for a lot of our students. However, I feel we need to act on a communal, informal basis, meaning we need to take those spaces outside of institutions and we need to implement and protect them. That way, we have this space and no institution could dictate how we meet, where we meet, and what we meet about. This is our space. We need to also center home languages and cultures of our youth. I know in Mozambique, since there are varying dialects, different languages, there must also be different cultures. Here in the US, in Arizona, there are multitudes of cultures. We have so many people coming to Arizona from all parts of the world. Those languages need to be honored in schools and in spaces, in community spaces. Another thing we could do is we need to start centering relationships over compliance. I think when we interact with youth, we have this tendency to think, oh, well, I'm the older one. I'm the one with the authority. You should listen to me. I have the wisdom. I'm wiser than you. I like to challenge that. I don't think that because you have more time on this earth makes you any sort of expert. I think that we need to topple this because this is a byproduct of capitalism. It's also a byproduct of just carceral constructs. True healing comes from relationships. Healing does not come from you going and sitting down with a stranger and sharing your problems. And I think that helps, but I think that communal healing is necessary in order to support our youth with disabilities. And communal healing could be transformative if we are able to meet each other where we are. Collective advocacy and partnerships. So we need to be able to advocate for our youth, for each other. We need to be able to view our interactions with youth and their families as partnerships. These partnerships are so foundational and monumental in impacting change and, just being the catalyst for, just systems change within schools. Reciprocity. Oh, is there somebody who wants to speak? I heard it. No? Okay, it must be in my mind. Reciprocity. I believe that we need to take the roles of learners with our youth. We learn so much from them. I have learned so much from young folks. Maybe, you know, more than older folks. I have to challenge that. Yes, I've learned so much from my youth, who I have shared space with, my students. I remember all their faces. They've taught me perspectives that I would have never conjured in my head. And I think that they must also take on the role of teachers, of educators. They have expertise in things that we will never have. And lastly, but most importantly, we need to protect youth within systems of exclusion that impact harm. I have to think about like the days in which I was a teacher and how I had to be the person that says, okay, you have to take this test. We have to see what your numbers are. Well, why? The student says, why do I need to take this test? And I didn't have an answer. I'm like, you're right. I don't know why. I have no idea why we're doing this. So I think that we, alongside our youth, need to interrogate how systems that manifest in schools really impact them in a harmful way. And you know, it's the discomfort, it's these contradictions that are the true catalysts of change. And if we take the outputs of this process and bring them forward to our community and to spaces where decisions are being held or being made on behalf of us, then there is a chance that we could make a difference. Okay, any questions? Okay, so we're gonna circle back to Ubuntu and in Lakesh. So we need to remember that my humanity is communal, meaning I am because we are, right? Without we, there is no me. In Lakesh teaches us that your humanity is tied to my humanity. Your well-being, your joy is my joy, right? If I harm you, I harm myself. We are one and the same. We are in this together. And with that, I would like to implore you to reflect on this. See how Ubuntu and Enlikesh really impact your ways of being with students, your ways of being with youth, your ways of being with each other, with your families. How can you bring this and really elevate these two philosophies? And with that, I would like to say thank you. Gracias, obrigada. This has been such an honor, such a treat. I really enjoyed being here with you and being allowed, having the opportunity to share what I know. And in the process, kind of make me think, okay, what else do I not know? So that that discomfort within myself when I kind of think, oh, well, maybe I should have read about that a little bit better. That is what brings me joy. So I thank each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your time and your space. If you want the slideshow, I'm happy to provide it. These are my references. And with that, we could start chatting. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrea, for being today with us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to learn from you. I think now is the moment that we can start our questions. We can share our views about what we saw, what we learned today with Andrea. Andrea, I already have some questions here related with our contest in Mozambique. But I want you also to consider Vanna's question, which was, how do you, as a teacher, find out if a student has a disability? And how do you respond to that? Because I think it's one of the main questions that we have to in Mozambique, if we talk about teachers not knowing how to deal with the children's or students with disabilities. The other question that I have that is related with your topic is Mozambique education system is still developing inclusive education policies, and there are challenges like limited teachers training, large class sizes, and few resources. So I want to hear from you, how can a humanizing approach work with these constraints? Considering all these challenges that we don't have teachers that are trained, we have classrooms with more than 40 students, we don't have resources. Do you think it's still possible to humanize education in these conditions?
Absolutely. Thank you for your questions. I'm going to address Venus' question first. And we do have special educators here with us, so please jump in if you want to add anything. But I could tell you the general process, which I feel is dehumanizing and morally, ethically not appropriate. But so if a student displays or demonstrates any sort of deviance in terms of their learning style, if they struggle with any type of like classroom curriculum, any type of lessons, the teacher perceives them as not engaged or just not being participatory, which is, I feel, very subjective. This teacher can refer, now if it's in the lower grades, this teacher can refer them to what is called in TUSD Child Find, and how they could implement various interventions to help the student kind of get on board with completing what they need to complete. Just being engaged with classroom activities or being able to read adequately